Hey Ringside crew, welcome to the internationally known Dudes at Ringside podcast. And now here's your host, Joe, Panther III.
Hello there, wrestling fans, and welcome to another episode of the internationally known Dudes at Ringside podcast. I am Joe Panther III, and man, we're in the middle of the Women's Wrestling Month, and we have a young lady that is, normally I have professional wrestlers on. Lately, I've been having like ring announcer professionals, but this young lady is a backstage interviewer. That's so I had to book her. I knew that it was gonna be so much fun. Let's give a warm Dudes at Ringside welcome to Chianne Michaels. Welcome to Dudes at Ringside, Chianne. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. So, what made you come into this big world of professional wrestling? What was like your start with this wrestling world?
So my starting point was my father. He's always been a really big wrestling fan, and ever since I was a little girl, I've just grown up watching it with him. So I've always been a fan, and then everything just kind of played into part.
Awesome. So what was the very first match you ever watched?
Ooh, I don't know about the very first match because I was so young, but I think the very first match that I can remember was, like, very clearly remember, is Kevin Ryan versus Sunny Days at Southern Honor Wrestling in Canton, Georgia.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. I'm from the East Coast, and we have promotions like the New York Wrestling Connection out here, and I live in Pennsylvania now. We have PPW. Do you ever remember as a kid like going to like the early days of the independent wrestling scene, or do you not remember that?
I don't remember like a lot of the matches, but I remember going to some of the like independent wrestling shows. Yeah.
Because I'm 41. I do remember hearing about the shows, and when I got into college, my friends started inviting me to go to like the NYWC, and I was like, wow, this whole world of independent wrestling that I never thought I would be able to be like go on the internet and be like, hey, you want to come on a show? You know what I mean? Like, just boy, the internet.
Yeah.
So, now let's get into it. With you being a backstage interviewer, do you have to, like, when you're doing your interviews, do you ever feel like I have to learn everything about this wrestler before you start interviewing them, or is it just something you have straight in you, like almost like a mean gene?
No, sometimes I do my research, but a lot of the time I feel like I kind of know the person from watching shows and seeing them wherever they wrestle at. So I do kind of get the like connection with them before I actually interview them, so I kind of know what they're about. But there are other times where I've never met a wrestler before, and I'm like, oh, like, I don't really know who you are. Like, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? And then they'll tell me a little bit about their like wrestling career, and so I'll kind of like get the vibe of how they are.
Do you find yourself like sometimes going, wow, I can't believe I'm actually in the wrestling business?
Yes, a lot of the times. Yes.
I can see it. You're like, ow, no, I'm doing it. Ow. Like, I'm really doing this.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go on.
Go ahead.
I watched your most, like, on one of your Instagram things. I watched you interview a tag team, the tag team that just won the tag team titles. What would you say your favorite people to interview would be, like a solo act or like a tag team?
I like interviewing tag teams more because there's more action, so there's more like things to pay attention to. I just like to pay attention to minor details and things. So I like having all of the details. So when they're like overwhelming, I always find something new when I go back and watch my videos.
Have you ever interviewed a wrestler and you feel like, uh-oh, this guy may snap like during the interview, like the heels. Like do you ever like with the heels, do you have to be on your toes? Because you know some bad
Yeah.
guys could be like, ugh.
With heels, I'm always on my toes because you never know like what they're gonna do or what they're gonna say. So, I try to keep my interviews like nice and clean, family friendly. So, I'll start them over if they start acting up. And then sometimes they're like, hey, you're not the boss. And I'm like, whoa, sorry, my bad. And I take a step back. So, yeah, it depends on the heel. Some heels I can take, some heels kind of scare me.
Mm. Have you ever thought of trying to be like commentary? Because I know you're backstage interviewer, but like to get in the actual.
Um, not necessarily commentary, but I do ring announcing as well for other promotions around. So I'm kind of in two places at once.
That's cool. Have you ever thought of traveling to different states to, or do it like traveling abroad to go do like backstage interviewing and stuff like that?
Yeah, I have thought about that. I've started sending some things to like WWE and AEW to try and get booked with them. So hopefully one day I can start going and traveling with big promotions like that.
You said you're also a ring announcer. Do you like, you know how singers always have to drink tea with lime in it? So what is like your like if there's anybody watching or listening that they're a singer, like what is the thing you do before a show?
So I really don't have a thing before a show. I'm trying to find different things because I'm still early in my ring announcing days. So I'm trying to find something to coat my throat really well. But when I am announcing, I pull a lot from my diaphragm instead of from my lungs. So it gives the more like deeper announcing type, and like my voice can go deeper and go to different lengths, and it won't like put so much strain on my like lungs and my breathing so much, and it pulls from my diaphragm
Mm.
instead.
Yeah, I've had ring announcers say they drink tea. I had a female ring announcer last year on. She was on the podcast. She's from California. The one that won the ring announcer contest that was on SummerSlam that one year, the Asian girl.
Mm-hmm.
She makes funny faces where during before a show. She's like, like because you always wide opening your mouth and you don't want to get locked
Yeah,
jaw.
yeah.
Yeah. So I noticed behind you, you have like it's like that's an amazing collection of like wrestlers. Like, where did it start? Like, who is that from? Like your dad, or is that like something you and
Um, so it started with my dad when he was a kid. So he started collecting them. But this section behind me is what I like to call my section because it is mainly all of the women wrestlers. So I like to like when I see a cool women wrestling figure and I'm like, oh, I don't have her yet. I'll grab her and throw her on the wall. Sometimes I have to rearrange because we do have a lot. There's a ton. But
so do
yeah, it
you,
started with my dad, and it's something that I've carried on.
that's so cool. Like, how far back in the wrestling world do you look, or do you go to shows and like you see people selling the figures and you have to dive on it, or do you go on like Amazon or like all those websites to get your toys?
I do a lot of like local show buying, I guess. So I do buy a lot at the shows, but sometimes if I can't find it, I'll go on like eBay or I'll order directly from like the AEW shop or the WWE shop.
So do you do by era? Because I know Grimm's Toy Show. I don't know if you're familiar with him. I met him at a show in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and I remember watching his show and how he does his figures. Do you go by year of the woman when the woman was in wrestling, or do you just have them randomly like stacked near each other?
Um, I feel like they're mostly random. I tried to do like put them in by era, in year, but it like I just kept getting so many that I would constantly be rearranging, and I got tired of rearranging. So I think they're like over here they're kind of started in the eras, and then as you get further this way they just kind of go random.
I know you have to have a China in that collection probably somewhere.
Um I think I do. It's somewhere in here.
Like
Somewhere.
Alondra Blaze, probably Jacqueline.
Yeah. I don't know where she's at the
You know
moment,
what's
but I
weird?
believe I have one.
I don't even know. Because I know they Jack specific. They came out with some wrestlers that were random, and they like there's ones that came out once and then they canceled it. They have
Yeah.
to have an Alondra because she's part of that tree of the women's wrestling when the women's title had a meaning, but it was kind of like it was fading out about that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
I know we
then
definitely have like some Molly Holly figures that like we have them and not a lot of people have them, but we definitely have some of those.
it's so weird to think that Molly Holly went from just Molly Holly with the cute little outfit, and then she was like a super Molly or whatever she was called when she was with
Yeah.
Hurricane, and then they put her in Right to Censor. I was like, I loved Molly Holly. I thought she was so cute and sweet.
So this is the China figure I have.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So just
So
super pretty. She's kind of dusty, but it's okay.
she'll be your bodyguard if you ever need to just stand behind you during interviews. Don't touch me.
And then let's see. This is the Molly Holly figure I have as well.
Yeah, that's the sweet, bubbly Molly Holly I remember. No
Yeah.
Right to Censor. No black hair and mean. Like,
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's so cool to see a woman collecting wrestling figures because I know there's many other women that collect wrestling figures, but they don't want to show it off. And it's
Yeah.
sad. I find it sad because like not only guys collect that love professional wrestling, there's women that absolutely watched it since they were like 9 years old or something like that. And it's now they're like, I don't want to tell people I watch wrestling. Why? I'm like, just why? It's like weird. So
I get that a lot. People will ask me like, "Oh, how are you so comfortable with like just like people knowing that you are a wrestling fan?" And I've just always grown up on it. It's my lifestyle. It's not something to be ashamed of. I love it.
yeah. So what does it feel like to have kids coming up to you and asking you for like autographs and asking you about questions about being in the business? What does that feel like to you?
I love it. I love trying to spread like the love for wrestling because I know when I was a kid, I was going up to people and I would be like, "Oh my gosh, you're so cool." And so I just try to really give off a positive vibe and make sure that the kids are happy and feel welcome. And I try to give them all like I have little blow up microphones I'll give out and stuff like that. So I just try to make them feel included in the show as well. And with like older people, like more adults, I try to do the same thing and just try to really feel the vibe and like just make them feel welcomed and like I'm a nice person, which I am. I didn't mean that to be like, no, I'm secretly a rude person, but I'm really nice.
You're
I
turning
feel like
heel right now. Heel turn right now. Yeah. So do you have like 8x10s? Because I know wrestlers, a lot of them have 8x10s.
I have a couple 8x10s. I'm starting to get more and doing more like promo pictures, but I do have a few currently. And then I am also currently working on making some t-shirts.
That's cool. I like that. That's cool. You don't always see the backstage interview girls saying, I got t-shirts, $20. Like, yeah. If you're popular, why not, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. So, if there was any like kids out there watching the podcast and they wanted to get into the wrestling business, what kind of advice would you have for them?
Ooh, I would say if you love it, go for it. That's like my motto. If you love it, go for it. But yeah, definitely try to like talk to whoever you can and see how ways you can improve while you're still super, like, not super young, but while you're young, to try to improve and be the best that you can be when it comes to being whatever, a ring announcer, a backstage interviewer, a wrestler, even. Like, just go for it.
Awesome. So do you have any aspirations to actually get in the ring and wrestle, or do you think you just see yourself as a backstage interviewer?
I tried training a little while ago and it wasn't for me. So I don't think I'll ever become a wrestler, but I would like to grow more in my ring announcing and
Awesome.
backstage interviewing.
That's cool. I would just wanted to ask that because I know of I've interviewed a lot of backstage interviewers that have been trained, and the ring announcers, they have been trained because you guys are backstage and you never know, a female wrestler may go, you know what, I'm tired of this, and they'll grab you and you'll be like,
Yeah.
you'll look like, oh my god, you'll look like what's your name, Gold Sus manager. Like,
Yeah, so I know enough to where if somebody were to like come at me, I could fight back, but like it's not in my like desires to really be a wrestler at all.
I get that. I totally understand that. Before we go, if my fans want to follow you on social media, how can they find you?
Of course, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok. Instagram is Chianne_Michaels. TikTok is Chianne.Michaels, I think, and Facebook is Chianne Michaels.
My one last thing for you: if you had to put a top 5 of your all-time favorite female wrestlers, who would that be?
Ooh, top 5.
Well, you can make it a top 10 because there's a lot of female wrestlers out there that deserve to be on the top 10.
Yeah, I feel like, now that like I'm in the spotlight of it, I'm trying to like
And
think of all
also,
the female
don't
wrestlers I
forget,
know.
as I always say, I love my indies. Indie female wrestlers are also added to this top 10 if you wanted to.
Okay, that makes it easier. I would say my top. We'll do top 5 because I feel like I can do that one easier. Danny Jordan, Britt Baker, Tony Storm, Chris Statlander. I really like Chris Statlander. And my number 1 would be I don't know who my number 1 would be.
There's so many. There's so many good female wrestlers out there that don't get the kudos that they deserve.
Right. I would say maybe Sasha Banks. I
Oh
really
yeah,
like Sasha growing
or the
up.
CEO, as they call her now.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I think they call her.
I thought it
No,
was
I can't
CEO.
remember what they call her.
I thought it was CEO. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the CEO boss almost goes in the same hand in hand. Watch when you're done with me. What was that? Sorry.
I think it was legit boss. Is
Yeah.
what she went by.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I want to thank you so much for taking the opportunity to come on the podcast. It really means a lot to have an awesome talent like you. I want to wish you nothing but the best on your backstage interviewing / ring announcing career. Thanks so much. I'm Joe Panther III.
I'm Chianne Michaels.
And we will catch you in the next one.